rainforest of culture. People took pride in this diversity. Of course, that changed. While in Belgrade, I first lived in a small hotel near Studenski Trag and Kalemegdan Park. It was in the middle of a Cigana and Albanian area, and there was live traditional music in the streets day and night, especially on weekends for marriages, where the Cigana musicians were frequently involved. Skadarlia was crazy busy, and some of my fondest memories actually were out in Cigana after-hour bars out in Vojvodina. But it became obvious that I might learn grammar by studying books, and I was trying to learn Serbo-Croatian then. But it was from the music that one learned the real spirit of the people. There was singing along, for example, with Yeah Yeah Yelena in a crowded bar said more about the people than you could possibly learn from books. 30 to 40 years later, I was doing field work with the birds in California, and I realized that, like learning about Serbian people from the grammar of their language, one can learn something, but really understanding required learning and precipitating in their music. That's true for biologists, for the general public, it's for birds as well as for people. And the artists contributed greatly toward achieving those goals. This project matured a great deal since Victoria and Takashi Yakagami began the art science project, Birdsong Diamond. Their students included John and Itsuki, who provided core technical skills. But there's other students included, many other students contributed. And we'll see today that Ivana and Clinton are contributing for this particular showing. I'm amazed at what's been accomplished. And I'm very glad to be back in Belgrade, even if it must be remotely. I only wish I could be there to see the exhibit in person and to see my old friends and familiar places that have such warm memories. Hopefully that will be possible in a year or two. In the meantime, I thank Victoria for organizing this and providing a remote version with the help from the students.
Thank you, Chuck, so much. I mean, you really are a teacher to me. Just before we move on a little bit, I would ask you about your relationship to, and what you discussed a lot with me about language and birds. In other words, taking the bird song beyond mating and looking for food. What are they communicating about, and how do these networks get mapped, and why is it important?
Certainly, I think it's important for understanding our relation to nature. And I think very little is more important now than establishing a healthy relation between humans and their environment to make a more sustainable environment. In California, it's just evident that this has been a failure. We need to do a better job with that. That's why it's important. But we're learning a great deal more through science. My own perception is that American Indians really it's something else being with them in the field and seeing how they relate to things. It's almost spiritual. It's well beyond I think it's well beyond what we've done with our science. But there's hope that there will be let's say a reconciliation or a blending of this knowledge, combining of this knowledge. And so continuing to work on it, I'm sure has many benefits.
Thank you. And John, do you want to say a couple of words, just a few words about how you were working with sound? And you actually started working in Chuck's lab. I have to say that I took a good 2 years just kind of shadowing Charles and his group because I really felt illiterate. And John started working with Chuck in the lab, so we both were learning slowly how much we don't know.
Yeah, I think my first experience had been going out to the field site where um, we were recording video, or members of Chuck's lab were recording video of the California thrasher, um, to see the behavior of the thrasher in relation to kind of randomly generated song, or versus kind of a more organized version of an artificial song. So seeing how these birds reacted to different types of structured versus kind of unstructured song. And from that, it really, even that small experience kind of influenced a lot of the ongoing aspects of Birdsong Diamond, especially seeing how the recordings were made, this sort of dome kind of microphone, the sort of being able to focus the audio in receiving it, but also thinking about how we can project the audio in a focused way. And then kind of going on to the different spaces that we created the exhibition, we tried to kind of expand on this and make it immersive in a way that we could achieve the sort of directionality of the different sounds we were hearing from the different like positions around the space, and then also increase the kind of participation of the people that were entering the space. And starting, I guess, with the original installation in the UCLA, I guess it was, I'm not sure if the name of the place exactly, but it's sort of the trees outside of the Broad Art Center. I guess it would be the sculpture garden.
Sculpture garden, yeah.
So we had these directional parametric speakers that could produce a kind of beam-like sound, mounted up in the trees, in the branches of the trees in the sculpture garden, both aimed upward towards the leaves and then downward towards the ground. And we're creating a sort of feedback network. And that was primarily, I think, imagined by like a lot of Ikegami's students, Takashi Ikegami's students in his lab that came over, and they were creating this sort of feedback network of bouncing the sounds off the leaves, receiving them again with microphones mounted in other places, and then using that to generate this sort of ongoing kind of sound organism in a way, artificial life form.
And then we ended up in New York, and we started working with Paul at Harvest Works. Paul, I'm so glad you joined. We just finished Alien Stardust, so I feel like I dragged him in. We've been collaborating for quite a while, and Paul is actually is at NYU and at New York, and he specializes in spatialized sounds, and he built many different versions of it, and was really also key to making us think, how do you make spaces immersive through sound? It seems like all the VR spaces are so visual oriented, and the sound is usually either quadraphonic or just blasts at you. So just a few words. When we were in Governor's Island and in the studio, it was actually such a pleasure working with you and thinking about complexity and sound.
Well, thank you, Victoria, for having me, and congrats to everyone with a wonderful project. And many people, when we talk about immersive sound, they cite being in the forest. Many composers and technologists have often said their goal was to create something as beautiful and as immersive as being in nature. Of course, Murray R. Schafer, many other theorists have always appreciated this. So it's a wonderful project to recreate it and make it interactive. And should I talk about our future ideas, Victoria?
Yeah. That's why I dragged you in.
Okay, sure. So we're in the midst of receiving, working on a generous grant from Harvest, working with HarvestWorks to get funding to take this work and others to the next level of interaction through both in-person immersive, through in-person and online, is a project we're working on called Sound Follower, where using various devices, these parametric speakers can actually follow people, and also an online version where the software would analyze how people are looking at each other, or their body language, or their emotion, or whether they're moving a lot or not, and have that affect the sound in lieu of being there in person. Collect as much information as we can from the video feed and translate that either just for effect or to tell a narrative through sound in a remote location. With headphone technology, we can create very nice immersive environments.
Mm-hmm. So we're basically starting already to work since April, I would say. How do we create this kind of experience through not only headphones, but also if you at home somehow are able to set up so you could have a more immersive experience, because we're all quarantined all over the place. And this became actually quite a challenge when Maja invited me to participate in the exhibition that actually closes tomorrow in Belgrade. So maybe, Maja, you can talk about virtual space as a curator, because you actually had to do the whole show in the Mozilla Hub. as Ars Electronica is doing, what we're doing, everything's kind of moving into this 3D virtual space. So, dobrodošli, Maja.
Thank you, Victoria. Well, we are all taking part in the transhuman turn, curators as well. So looking from that perspective, Charles Taylor talk is such a beautiful, nostalgic memory of the glorious days of Yugoslavia. And everything was actually initiated from the Serbian Center of the Promotion of Science, which is located nearby the hotel that Charles mentioned, near Studentski Trg in Belgrade. So talking about the origins of our performances today and the relations they embody, we are not things. We are not things because things are not vivid. So the origin of the work of art, as Heidegger mentioned, is actually a vivid thing, and it's both aesthetic and logical at the same time. So that's where an art and science project gets into the picture, right? So as a curator participating in this transhuman turn, it's something new. It's something new because it became just a reality. It's not just an imagination or an option. There are no options anymore. It's just we have to be committed to the virtual space if we want to participate in the reality of the art world and the scientific world today. So back in April, when we were quarantined in Serbia, a beautiful thing happened. The birds came back. So that was also another turn because people were so quiet. There were no cars in the street. Everybody was constrained to stay at home. We heard the birds again. So this project is also context responsive, and I'm grateful for your knowledge and input into articulating articulating the language of birds into our against the Anthropocene paradigm. So. What is beautiful about the project is Belgrade, that it has a certain edge to it. It was always planned, but what happened this year, it was just as we all know, unplanned. But the Center of the Promotion of Science takes part in the Artificial Intelligence Lab, the European Artificial Intelligence Lab. And they always knew that they have to be progressive and they have to keep up with the pace of the transforming world. So this year we decided to make a physical project in an edgy but independent and politically non-compromised artistic space, which is called Magazine. And we're happy about our physical exhibition. At the same time, this exhibition took part in the frame of ESOF Trieste, which is the European Open Forum for Science that took part in Trieste. So at the same time, doing a project in Belgrade, in Trieste, in the physical spaces, but at the same time in the virtual space. So here I would like to invite you just to have a little bit of, just to try to get with me for a moment into the Mozilla Hub that we have created. Okay. Where you see the big screen is actually where, I don't know why it's not working at the moment, but this is the projection of Victoria Vesna's performance from the 2017. I will show you the photo of the installation in a moment. Initially, we have planned to make a performance, but due to the COVID constraints, we were unable to do it. So, because the performance is connected to the microphone, it's just not safe because of the virus. So, there are 6 different positions in this space, and each of them are dealing critically with the artificial intelligence and machine learning. And they all deal with some kind of the digital upload of the self. This particular work is a machine that learned how to generate orthodox icons. And it looks like, and this is a piece by a national winner, Serbian national winner of this year, which is called Kristina Tica. We have also another work by Filip Kostic, who is living in LA actually, and who is affiliated with the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. Then we have the new scope by Vlada Njoler and Matteo Pasquinelli. These maps are downloadable online. The previous map, the cognitive map that is defetishizing artificial intelligence by Vlada Njoler, is acquired by the MoMA Museum. And I kind of like the fact that it is promoted this year because everyone can have it, and it's kind of a counter force in terms of the relation to the art market, and because everyone could have the map that is in a MoMA collection. So we also have another project that is dedicated to the melody of the noise pollution. And 6 positions, a minor project this year, but I think we're keeping up and we will be keeping on. So the flocks of birds at the right-hand side, you also see a projection by Victoria Vesna that is inspired by the aesthetics of the origami birds. And this is not just a simple aesthetic piece. It is actually a data visualization of of a large flock of birds. This flock of birds has 500,000 birds, consists of 500,000 of birds. So by tracing their movements, Victoria assembled this beautiful aesthetic piece. So it's about the origins, it's about the birds going and coming, going away and coming back. And it's also about how we as humans will respond to that.
Okay.
So,
thank you for that. It's nice to see how it actually looks. Thank you.
I mean,
and,
the space is edgy, but we kind of like the edge of it because the transhuman turn is also something that we were not prepared for, but we embraced it with this show, and I'm really grateful to show your piece in it.
Thank you. So last but not least, I would love Jasna to talk a little bit about her work that I just discovered thanks to Maja. Thank you for the introduction, Maja.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me today. I was invited to participate in this project because of the project I did a few years ago called The Sound of Birds. And it was actually a public campaign for the protection of birds of Lake Palić and Ludaš, where I live. And the project was a platform for education, contemporary artistic expression, legal initiative. We stopped actually the hunting for some of the bird species. We did a lot of education. We developed some sustainable solutions for the protection of the birds. But the most important what was for me, as I am a musician, a composer, a saxophone player, that we actually did the first Serbian database for the soundbirds. We did a huge field recording with the ornithologists from Palić and Ludaš Lake, and we collected more than 400 bird sounds that we actually used for education and for further scientific.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. For the scientific research, but how I used it as a jazz musician, I was interested actually to analyze it musically. As all the jazz musicians, we all have jazz theory and analyzing how the sound can be developed, how we can change the accents, the phrasing of music. So what I did I was editing and mixing all these bird sounds, and I used them in a different way in every composition. Sometimes I slowed down the bird song so I could hear the exact melody, I could hear the exact rhythm. And we were talking about this with Victoria. I found out that there is many birds singing pentatonic scale that we all use in so many cultures, from all around the world. Then I found that they use sometimes some of the scales we use. In another way, I use them for the rhythm. I use just like the soundscaping. So I use them in a different directions, and that's how we played it. Really was inspiring. I made a whole album called The Sound of Birds. It's available on YouTube. So I think that Victoria used some of those samples as well. So for this project, I offered some of those sounds, and I hope it will work out.
Oh, it's so wonderful. You'll hear. Hopefully everything technically works so we can actually try it out.
Looking forward.
But just to say that what we're going to do is do a little improvised test between all of us doing networks, meaning Clinton, Ivana, and John and I. And we are using your samples, Jasna, so thank you for that. And we want you also to get a sense of what we're doing with your work. And then Takashi and Itsuki, we actually met with them. Itsuki spent some time and he sent samples to us. And it should be noted that until we went to Japan, we were completely focused on birdsong and spatialized atmospheres. The moment the Japanese came into the picture, the machine came into the picture. And the machine sounds, and at first Chuck will tell you he was horrified, like what? But then we started thinking, well, actually, birds are constantly having to deal with machine birds, with drones, helicopters. Us as humans are dealing more and more with machines. And one of the reasons that we don't hear them is because of the machine. So people go around with headphones or the noise happening. So we started actually layering the machines, drone sounds, even the origami, obviously influenced by Japan. We have origami of drones as well. And what was mentioned with Takashi's work with the swarms is just absolutely incredible work dealing with self-organized criticality and how these swarms at one point just become independent. You can't even control it or predict it. which is the opposite of the usual machine learning kind of idea. And so we're going to use Ivana's, Jasna's sounds. It's from Serbia. Itsuki's sounds and language directions for mimicking from Japan. And then I discovered that Jasna also has a hang drum that happens to be in the same key like the hang drum that I have. So when we did our first test, it was just like, okay, we're going to use this. So I'll play the hang drum a little bit. And John's going to pull in his work. Ivana and Clinton are going to be mixing sound and image, and we're just going to play. So it's human language, it's bird language, it's let's see where the tech gods take us, whether it's all going to work fine. How do you want to take this, you guys? Should we just mute from Zoom and switch to video and start jamming? Okay. And the sound you can take from Bitwig directly to Zoom, or how are we doing it? Yes. So we all are going to mute the Zoom, and for the audience, just be patient until we switch over, because this is all happening in real time. We're living dangerously. I think you would be hearing it on YouTube, or do they hear it here? Okay, good. Слушайте, птиce. Слушайте. We'll go directly to YouTube. Yeah, so if anyone... That's Jasna in the background. Are we going to YouTube or we're doing Zoom?